In a previous video session, we looked at the PPF curve and the two types of PPF curves, the straight line and the bowed outward PPF curve. Now, the PPF curve, we're going to focus now on the bowed outward. Now, that PPF curve or frontier can be used to illustrate 7 economic concepts, and you will be tested, especially in the multiple choice questions, in your interpretation of your PPF frontier or framework, and the 7 economic concepts that can be illustrated by using this PPF framework. So the 7 economic concepts are scarcity, choice, opportunity cost, productive efficiency, productive inefficiency, unemployment, and economic growth. So we will look at each one separately. So the first one is scarcity. Now, how can scarcity be illustrated in your PPF framework? So that is the first thing that we're going to look at. So we're going to draw your PPF curve just roughly. Any two goods, right? We can say that is good Y and this is good X. So if you look at your bowed outward PPF curve, what is illustrated, this is your PPF frontier. So what is illustrated in this framework in terms of scarcity? Scarcity is illustrated by the frontier. This is a frontier itself. So it means that this frontier, it's separating what is attainable and what is unattainable. So points outside this frontier, like say for example point G, that is not attainable with the given state of technology and with the available resources. So that will indicate scarcity. Points inside the curve, say for example below the frontier, that will indicate points that is attainable. So we're not using all resources efficiently, so there can still be, production can increase. So of the two goods in the economy. So scarcity is basically the frontier itself, right? Because it separates basically what is attainable and what is unattainable. So that is the first point that you must remember, and I think is also there, is that scarcity is illustrated by the frontier itself. So there's an attainable reason and there's an unattainable reason. Okay? So the PPF curve or frontier separates an attainable, this is attainable, and above the curve is unattainable. So implicit in the concept of scarcity is the idea that we cannot have some things because we've got limited resources. Okay, the second concept that is important here is choice. Now, how is choice being illustrated? Now, let's look at each one separately. So the second concept is choice. So we draw a rough PPF curve, say that is good X or good Y, and then good X on the vertical and horizontal axis. So that is your PPF curve. So say that is PPF 1. So what do we mean by choices? We've got maybe combination A, combination B, as you go along the PPF frontier, combination E, and so you go on, combination F. Now, choices are indicated by, you can either choose combination A, where you produce maybe 5 of Y and 0 of X. Or you can choose to produce combination B, where you produce maybe 1 of X and maybe 4 of good Y. Or you can maybe produce combination C, decide where you produce 3 of Y and maybe 2 of X. Or D or E. So basically the points on the PPF frontier, on the frontier, indicates the choices that a society have. What combination of goods, of the two goods, they will decide to produce. So choices are represented by having to decide what combination you will then produce of the two goods. Okay, so either A, B, C, D, or E, or F of possible combination. Then the third concept, economic concept that is illustrated by the PPF curve is the concept of opportunity cost, which we have discussed in chapter 1. So opportunity cost can also be illustrated by a PPF curve. So again, the production of Y, the number of units of Y, and X on the horizontal axis. And this is your bowed outward PPF curve, PPF 1. Now, what is opportunity cost? we've got various combinations there. If you produce combination A, B, C, D or E. Now, if you move from A to B, we have seen it. If you move from B to C, from C to D, along this frontier, what are you doing? What is happening with opportunity cost? The more you will produce of good X, the less you will produce of good Y. So, as you produce more of good X, the opportunity cost of producing X increases. So, it means that opportunity cost is indicated by the movement from point A to B, from B to C, from C to D. That is where opportunity cost is illustrated as you move along the PPF frontier or the PPF curve. Okay, so that is the third concept that is being illustrated by the PPF or the frontier itself. Then the fourth concept is productive efficiency. Now, what do we mean by productive efficiency? It's illustrated there in your textbook as well. Productive efficiency simply means that all the resources are used to the maximum. It's the maximum output that you can produce. So again, we use the same PPF framework. So that is the production of X on Y, and this is your PPF1. Now that is your various combinations. We can show that. Now the points on your PPF curve, A, B, the various combinations D, E, F. Now, these are the maximum. If you decide any one of these combinations, this is the maximum output. The maximum output that you can produce under the condition of the given that technology, you cannot improve technology, you cannot change technology, and you're using all the available resources to the maximum. So, productive efficiency simply means it's the maximum output that you can produce with the available resources as well as the technology. So all points on the PPF frontier indicates the maximum output, and that indicates productive efficiency because you're using all your resources to the maximum and you're using the technology that is available to the maximum. So that is productive efficiency. Maximum output is very critical in this case. Then the fifth concept that is being is basically also what we call unemployment, or we can go also productive inefficiency. That is the same thing. So if you look at productive inefficiency, what do we mean by productive inefficiency? Productive inefficiency, if you look at again the framework, I'm just drawing every time the framework so that you can see it more clearly, how this concept is being illustrated. So, where is productive efficiency? Remember, we said at the beginning is that the frontier separates the attainable region from the unattainable region. So, points below the frontier, that is attainable, and all points below the frontier means there's unemployed resources. Unemployed resources. Now, what do we mean by unemployed resources? Unemployed resources simply means that we are not using all the resources that is available in the economy to the maximum, like labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and natural resources. So there is still resources that can still be used. So we're not producing the maximum output. So that is what we also call points below this frontier is points of productive inefficiency or unemployed resources. So that is another concept that can be illustrated. So like for example, point F, that will be productive inefficiency point or unemployed resources. Remember, when you talk about resources, it's all the factors of production. That is your labor, your capital, entrepreneurship, as well as your natural resources. That is needed to produce goods and services in the economy. Okay, and then the last concept that is being illustrated is what we call economic growth. Now, economic growth, how is that illustrated in the PPF framework? Now, what is economic growth? And then also, what can cause economic growth? Now, that is very important in the PPF framework. Economic growth can be caused by two things. An increase in resources. So resources increase, there's an increase in resources, in the quantity of resources, or there's an advance in technology, right? So there's an advance in technology, or there's an increase in the quantity of resources. Okay, so this will lead to economic growth taking place in that economy. Okay, now how is this illustrated in a PPF framework? So again, we look at your PPF framework. This is just hypothetical. Two goods, a good Y and good X. Okay, and this is your PPF1, the original PPF1. Okay, so what happens now? Your slide indicates also military goods and civilian goods, but we can look at any two goods, right? It doesn't matter what type of goods. So, say for example, there's an increase in the resources in the economy, and there's an advance in technology. Now, what do we mean by technology? Technology refers to the skills in the economy, the body of skills and knowledge in the economy. So, if that increases, if there's an advance in upgrading of skills, an increase in the knowledge base in the economy, it means that the economy can produce more of the two goods. So then what will happen with your PPF frontier? It means that more of good X can be produced and more of good Y can be produced in the economy. So what will then happen with your PPF curve? It will shift rightwards, right? Outwards. So the new PPF curve will be now PPF2. So it means that the curve shifts outwards to the right. More of good Y can be produced, more of good X can be produced, and that is simply because of an increase in the resources in the economy and an advance in technology. So this means that economic growth has taken place. Economic growth has taken place. And this is what South Africa's economy needs, more economic growth and more skills, upgrading of skills, improvement of skills, and technology, more technology and advancement in technology and knowledge base in the economy. Then what is not illustrated in your textbook is also what can happen, and we've seen it in 2007, 2008. There was a global recession worldwide, and it means that the production capacity, the capabilities of the economy declined. Here it was increased, the production capabilities, because of the increase in resources and advancing technology. The production capabilities has increased. But during the recession, many firms had to close down. What happened with the production capabilities of the firms? It declined, or of the economy declined. So then what will happen with your PPF curve? It will shift leftwards back to the origin. So that will then be your new PPF curve, maybe PPF3. So this will be caused by what we call a recession, where the production capabilities of the economy is then declining. So then less of good Y will be produced and less of good X will be produced. Okay? But also, what can also happen at the same time in this framework is there can be only an advance in technology of one good and also maybe of another good. Then just look at your diagram, your exhibit, or also this kind of exhibit, which you also have to look at. But in the exam and in the test, I will give you a PPF curve, and then all of these 7 economic concepts will be tested in that PPF framework, which basically you will have to identify scarcity. Where is scarcity? That is the unattainable region. Where is points of productive efficiency? All points on the frontier. Where are points of which is attainable but is productive inefficiency, which is unemployed resources? Where are points of opportunity cost? How is opportunity cost being illustrated? That is as you move along the curve. That is opportunity cost. The more you produce of one good, the higher the opportunity cost of producing that good. Choices. How is choices being illustrated? You can choose any combination on that frontier. So you've got the choice of any combination of the two goods. Remember, only two goods. And then also, how is economic growth illustrated? By a outward shift to the right of the PPF frontier. And then always a recession, for example, illustrated by a PPF in the PPF framework, is when the PPF curve shifts to the left. And this is, the importance. Now you can see the importance of this PPF framework, because you can use it as an analytical tool and to illustrate 7 very important economic concepts. And that concludes, this topic, the PPF curve or the frontier, and 7 economic concepts.